This is Chris Lytle. Welcome to the webinar. I'm speaking to you from Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I moved in April of 2019. This was my road trip of the year so far. We went all the way to Cleveland, Tennessee, to the Mars factory, and I got my picture taken in front of Big Yellow. I do want you to know that I'm recording this right now. We're going to post on Instant Sales Training. All of you as Radio Zola Diet partners have access to the site, Instant Sales Training. If you're having any trouble getting into your site or you want to get your membership renewed, let me know. But I will post this video under the video training section of the Instant Sales Training site later this afternoon. I will send people a message when that happens, but it may be this afternoon or first thing tomorrow. All right, so adults learn better and retain more when they're involved in the process. So I'd like to get you involved right away. You're going to use the chat feature of this of the Zoom. You go to the green bar and then click on more, and the chat feature is the first thing you see. So this is a little learning exercise called "What do you mean?" And I want you to give me the answer when the mechanic looks at your car, which is in for repair, and says to you, "This is going to take a while." I want you to text me or chat me what you think a while means in minutes, hours, days, weeks. What does this is going to take a while mean? So please text that or chat that over here. This is going to take a while. When will you get your car back? Hours, half a day, a few hours. Mark says 45 minutes, 3 to 5 hours from Brooke. Bev says an hour. This is going to take a while. Hours, at least an hour. 4 to 5 hours, says Bill. A couple of hours. Days, says Kelly. All right, so this is one of the problems we have, because this is going to take a while is one of those mushy little things. And I'm all about precision language. And precision language is using specific words to communicate to each other what is really happening. So had this mechanic said something like this, instead of "this is going to take a while," you know, if we order the part now, we'll get it here overnight. Once we get it here, the repair is going to take 3 or 4 hours. Your car is going to be ready at noon on Saturday. That's a much different approach to the language, and it lets the buyer or the customer know what's going to happen and what's going on. So thanks for participating. 30 minutes. Teresa's probably got the shortest there, 30 minutes. All right, well, thanks for participating in that. What do you mean? So this is about precision language, and precision language in advertising sales, radio advertising sales specifically. What do you mean consulting? We talk about consultative selling. What do you mean selling? What do you mean it's a big order, great relationship? It was a great meeting. We use terms like this, but we don't always define them with precision language. And that's what I want to attempt to do today. I'm a little distracted because I've still got people joining the session, but that's okay. All right, so what do you mean consulting? Consulting is giving expert advice. The word consult comes from the Latin con and the Latin word saltare, which means to think with. Con means with, saltare means to think. Consultants think with people. They ask questions, they contemplate with them, but they're also giving them expert advice. So you've got to have some expertise. The 3 secrets of success is something I learned on a plane talking to a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who had just sold his company and became chairman emeritus of his company. And we were flying out to San Francisco together in first class. And I found out what he did, and I talked to him for about an hour and a half, and he said, "Chris, I've got to work on my presentation because we're opening a new part of the campus out in Silicon Valley. But you want to know the secrets of success?" And I said, "Yeah." And he told me the secrets of success are these. 1, you've got to know what you're doing. That's the first secret of success. You've got to know what you're doing. But that's not enough. You've got to know you know what you're doing. You've got to know what what you're doing. Because if you know what you're doing, you can repeat your successes. Because you have to repeat things over and over again to ultimately become successful. Third secret, you've got to be known for what you know. You've got to be known for what you know, not just what you sell. And the way I put it is when you're known for what you know, people come to you for help and advice, not your lowest price. When you're known for what you know, people come to you for help and advice, not your lowest price. Now, I hope you'd agree with that, and maybe you're nodding your head, maybe not. I can't see you right now. But if you agree with it, it's not just for you. You could take this out and share this with your advertiser. You know, I was at on a webinar the other day on another Zoom call, and the speaker, I can't remember his name, but he said there's three secrets of success. You got to know what you're doing. Obviously you do, you wouldn't have been in business this long. You got to know you know what you're doing. And you've got to be known for what you know. So what do you know about jewelry? What do you know about leasing cars? What do you know about home remodeling? That if we put it in the advertising, people would come to you for help and advice and not just your lowest price. So those are the three secrets of success, but they can also be a presentation for you to use this afternoon or tomorrow when you're talking to an advertiser. I love this concept of the evolution of the sales mindset. And the big idea is, or this idea comes from Jeff Thal, his book, Exceptional Selling. I don't know, Jeff had to have photoshopped this because he's older than me. I just turned 70 in May. I know it doesn't look it, but I did. So era one, according to Jeff, is persuade. And I remember when I got into sales in 1972, my sales manager played this record in a sales meeting. That's 1972 or 3. And there's J. Douglas Edwards, and he's talking to a room full of life insurance salespeople. And he says, gentlemen, because they were all men, when you ask a closing question, shut up, because the next person who talks loses. And unfortunately, that's part of our sales DNA to this day. That's an old, archaic way to think about selling, but that was the age of persuasion. Then there's the age of solving problems. And consultative selling was really invented by Larry Wilson Learning. And Larry in the 1980s came out with consultative selling, his information on that, his tape programs. He wrote the 1 minute sale, the 1 minute salesperson, and was really a force in getting people away from persuasion into consultation and solving problems. And then today, the idea is to become a source of business advantage. It'd be so important to the person because you're bringing them ideas, you're bringing them research, you're helping them with their business instead of just trying to sell them something. So you're armed with research, you're armed with knowledge that they don't have. There's a couple of new programs. One's called a challenger sale, where you go in and try to challenge the person's thinking. Insight selling, where you bring them new insights that they hadn't thought of before, even though they can Google anything. You know something that they don't know, and you want to bring them information and trade that, because you're giving expert advice, trade that for time with the client. All right, so what do you mean selling? Well, everybody knows what selling is, and I'm sure you do too, and you have a definition, but I love this one. Phil Jones, he's a British sales trainer, one of the top 30 sales trainers in the world, according to gurus.com. But I love it, the idea that selling is earning the right to make a recommendation. And if you think about it that way, your behavior changes because you're earning the right to make a recommendation. You're not just going in there and pitching. That's what the essence of consultative selling is find the problem and then offer a recommendation to improve or offer a solution or improve the client's business. All right, so winning the game within the game of selling looks at 3 metrics. I call them the missing metrics, because most people just tell people to make more calls. And we measure calls and we measure sales, but we don't always measure the game within the game of selling. I call the 3 are sales process metrics, relationship metrics, and engagement metrics. So the sales process metrics, pretty obvious. This is the way most of us go into the marketplace. We have a first meeting. We have a customer needs analysis, write a proposal, make a proposal, confirm the order, make the sale, service the account. So we all have something like this. And each one of these steps is what I call an advance, from Neil Rackham, advancing the sale to where closing is appropriate, or a new business move. If you're trying to sell a new piece of business, you may have to make all these steps before you get there. And each one of them might require a meeting or two, a phone call, obviously. And it's going to take you some time to get to the close, but did you get closer to where closing is appropriate? Each one of those is a new business move. So that's what I call sales process metrics. How many new business moves did you have this week? Not just how many calls did you make? How many advances did you have? All right, so I'm going to go over to the right-hand side of your handout if you have your handout. And I'm going to talk a little bit about prospecting, and starting at the top of that little rectangle there, don't pick up the phone without a valid business reason. Valid business reason was coined by Miller Hyman when they wrote Consultative Selling. The reason for my unexpected sales call, when you're calling somebody on the phone, this is magic. The reason for my unexpected sales call, instead of a cold call, make unexpected sales calls. And the thing about that is it's so honest because they weren't expecting it, and you're admitting it's a sales call up front. And then you use the word because. So it's a little bit different approach. It's honest. And then because, if you read Robert Cialdini's book on persuasion, or just Google because and persuasion, you'll find some articles about why because is a magic word. Because if you use because, people are 20% more likely to do what you're asking them to do because you said because. I have an idea I want to run by you. So the reason for my unexpected sales call is I have an idea I want to run by you. I have some research I think you'll appreciate. So all of these things, you want to give them a reason to meet with you with an idea, research. Where do you get these ideas? Where do you get the research? I'm a big believer in Bob Hoffman and his blog, The Ad Contrarian. I hope everybody here is reading it. Everybody complains to me that their advertisers are using Facebook. Bob Hoffman just obliterates Facebook on his blog and in his books. So if you want some ammunition against Facebook, go to the blog. But also, there's a picture of Bob. He's got a YouTube video, The Golden Age of BS, which you can check out. It's very profane, but it's also very powerful. Go onto YouTube and look at any of Bob Hoffman's videos. All right. But one of the things that I want you to read, this is something I found on his blog, that people over 50 have all this buying power. So I'm just going to let you read this while I let more people into the webinar. They dominate 94% of the consumer products categories. And they're the internet's largest demographic, much easier, much cheaper to reach than any other demographic group. And according to Nielsen, they're the target for only 10% of all advertising. So that might be something that a car dealer or somebody who does home remodeling would want to know about. And it's information you can bring them that will, sorry, the CPG is consumer packaged goods, but it's stuff that you can bring people that will help them make better advertising decisions and make more money. So we're going down here about, by the way, I just told you I turned 70, but that's my cat Titan. He was $2,300. So we have some discretionary income as boomers. And when I said, what do you mean a big order? You know, I have a cat that costs $2,300. People have cars that cost $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 and more. And so we tend to think of whatever we're making in a month as a lot of money. But I remember running into a sales trainer named Jim Williams when I was a young guy making a very little amount of money. And he said, if you've got to ask for more than you make in a month, because what you make in a month you think is a lot of money, but business dollars and personal dollars are two different things. Oh, speaking of, this is my new cat, Chewy, C-H-O-O-E-Y. He's named after the Chattanooga Choo Choo. And Chewy is a rescue cat, so I've got a $2,300 cat and now a $10 cat. They both eat the same amount. But the client says, Teletubby over the phone, and you would say, I can't, I have some visual aids I want to share with you. And besides, it'll take no more than 20 minutes, and it's a non-decision-making, fact-finding conversation. Make sure you write that down, and this is a non-decision-making, fact-finding conversation. I had a guy from Success Motivation Institute in Waco, Texas. I was looking at doing a franchise when I was young. I said, maybe I should do more than radio at one point. And I went down to check on this franchise, and he said, fly on down here. We'll have a 2-day orientation. At the end, you decide whether you want to be a franchisee or not. And I said, that's a lot of time. He said, it's a non-decision-making, fact-finding meeting. And Sarah and I flew to Waco, paid for our own airplane tickets, and spent 2 days with this company. When we decided we didn't want to do it, though, he started hammering us in his office, and they lost all credibility with me. So if you tell someone it's a non-decision-making, fact-finding meeting, then don't try to close during that meeting on anything except the next step. So we call this building relationships your competitors can't steal. Relationship metrics are important to me. So what do you mean great relationship? And take it to the next level. So the big idea here is on page 2, you've got the chart, which is the foundation of my book, The Accidental Salesperson. And I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to look at the chart and see if you can see yourself at different levels with different prospects. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute while you do that. So you're going to have this one when the webinar is over, but the question is, can you see yourself at different stages with different prospects and advertisers that you call on? And I like the idea of sending information over, sending articles, sending a link to something that's important, being a resource. But if you send an article, you had a level 3 moment, that doesn't make you level 3 all week long. And the thing, there's some people in this webinar, Bud and Dick, and you guys were in the Leadership Institute when Norm and Ken and I were doing that. And it's absolutely crazy because I used to teach these people at the Leadership Institute that you have level 1, 2, 3, and 4 salespeople, and then you got to manage them differently. But one time I realized you really have level 1, 2, 3, and 4 relationships in one. You can have that in one day. And the story is that I had just written The Accidental Salesperson, and a meeting planner called and said, my vice president wants me to check and see if you're available to speak at the corporate sales meeting in October. And I said, well, tell me about the group, and tell me about what you want the result of the training to be, how you want people to be different as a result of my speaking to you. And she said, look, I'm the meeting planner. I'm going to look at 7 speakers. I'm going to watch 7 videos and pick 2 of them. You want to play? And I said, yeah, I'll play. And she said, well, send me your video and your specs and your bio, your rates. And I'm over there because my marketing person wasn't in the office. I'm over there shipping a video to someone, I don't even know the company name. And I said, I wrote the book and I just had a level 1 meeting. So I quit labeling salespeople and started grading relationships. And when you talk about relationship metrics, that's what I'm thinking about. Now, big idea, the quality of every meeting. every meeting and every relationship is measurable. The reality check, the last conversation is the relationship, because people aren't thinking about you when you're not there. So that's the chart. But page 3, top of page 3, what are 5 things you could do with the chart besides putting it in a file somewhere? So I'd like it. I don't want you to come up with 5 things yourself, but let's just pause for 30 seconds and text me 1 or 2 things you could do with the chart as besides leaving it in your handout, putting it in a drawer or a file and forgetting about it. So what could you do with the chart? Text that to me. I'll give you another 30 seconds and we'll see what people are thinking about. Thank you, Stacy, for saying Chewy is adorable. Jesus. I could post it over my desk as a reminder. I could make copies for home and office. I could look at each client and see, I could grade each client and see how I could move forward with each client. I could hang it in my car. I guess Andy's going to use it and have it in his car before he walks into a meeting. I could enlarge it and put it on the wall. So you have a poster to remind people, I want to have a higher level relationship, put it in my binder, put it in my cubicle, place it in my office, make it the background of my computer. Okay. We'll stop there. Okay, look at it every morning when I leave. Position borderline accounts. I already have it hanging in my office. Okay. So the other thing you could do, let's say if you have you're calling on an insurance agency and they have a sales team, you could say, hey, I went to this webinar the other day. I can't remember the speaker's name, but he has this thing called the chart, and it talks about the relationships you're having with different customers that you're calling on. And I thought you might want to have a copy of this and see if you can improve the relationships with your customers. So now you're a resource, so you can bring it to your customer. This picture is to remind me to tell you the story of a guy. He worked for United Van Lines in the executive relocation program. I spoke at their university in St. Louis a few years ago, and he said, Chris, I wanted to meet you. I wanted to tell you a story. He said, I copied the chart out of your book, The Accidental Salesperson, and I took it into a client who I had a level 1 relationship with. All he wanted was transactional relationship. And I said to him, Bob, look at this chart and tell me what kind of a relationship you want to have with me, because I could be bringing you so much more. I could bring you so much more information and do so much more for you if you let me in. So what kind of a relationship do you want to have with me? And the guy said, you want me to tell you right now? He said, no, think about it for a week or 2. And when I come back in, let's talk about it. He said within 2 weeks, they had a much different relationship because the person saw that this guy wanted to be a resource to him and not just a salesperson, an advocate rather than an adversary. I wrote the other day, or I quoted the other day, I'm an advocate for you rather than an adversary. So let's have a relationship where I can be a resource to you and not just a salesperson. So you can use the chart a lot of different ways. See where you are with the client. Use it as a plan to improve the relationship, but don't just put it away. All right, what do you mean great meeting? Oh, it was a great meeting. So engagement metrics are the number of prospects who have you on their calendars for a next step. And that's the leading indicator of sales success. How many people have you on their calendars for a next step? So salespeople do get hooked on hopium. I'm in Chattanooga now, but I used to live in Madison, Wisconsin. And we had just created our first internet course. And I think it was early in the 2000s. It was 2003 or 4. We were selling this online course for $3,200 a student. And we were selling lots of them. And I had a sales rep go from Madison up to a company in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. And then he came all the way, not Sturgeon Bay, I'm sorry, Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and all the way back. That was 225 miles to make one call, to have one meeting. And when Michael got back, I saw him walking over to his cubicle and walking by my office. And I said, Michael, let's debrief that meeting you had in Stevens Point. How did it go? He said, it was great. And I said, well, you must have an order in your briefcase if it was a great meeting. He said, well, I don't have an order, but it was a great meeting still. I said, well, what made it great for you? He said, well, we talked for an hour and a half. He loved the chart. He said he had a lot of level 1 salespeople, and if he could get them to have level 2 and 3 relationships, they'd get a lot more money. He agreed with it. That was our trouble talk that we said, if you have level 1 sellers, you're leaving money on the table. And so he bought that. And I said, well, how many salespeople does he have? He said, 38. So 38 times 3,200, this is a $100,000 opportunity. He said, but Chris, he's going to hire 12 more, so we'll have a salesperson in every state of the union, and then he wants to train. I said, what's the next step? Because I always say, what's the next step? What's the next step? And if you're a sales manager, you need to say, what's the next step until you're blue in the face, until salespeople are asking themselves, what's the next step, instead of you. Because salespeople can't handle the truth sometimes. And Michael said to me, the next step is he wants me to call him in the spring. I said, it's October 2nd. He wants you to, that's 6 months. Is there an interim step? Does he want to put a group of 5 or 10 in now to see if it would help him increase sales? So he'll know whether he wants to put all 50 people in. Do you have any next step? No, he just wants me to call him in the spring. I said, well, spring is 92 days long this year. Is there a day in the spring? No, I'm just going to call him in the spring. Michael didn't last until the spring. Anyway, the magic question. I've been teaching this, and you can use it your own words, but when someone says, I'm interested, call me. Are you willing to work with me on a calendar basis? Or can we get this on both of our calendars, because I know you're going to be busy and I'm slammed on Tuesday, but I have time at 11:15. Will that work for you? Can we get it on both of our calendars? Are you willing to work with me on a calendar basis? So the distinction we're making, and it's an important distinction, real prospects put you on their calendars for the next step. Information seekers, we used to call them suspects. Information seekers are suspects. Will let you or make you chase them down. They won't engage. And so when people aren't engaged with you, it's not a good idea to put them in your projections. If you think if you're hoping that they'll buy and shooting, blowing that smoke of hopium up to the sales manager, oh yeah, they're really interested. Well, what's the next step? Well, they want me to call them in the spring. I didn't put the $100,000 opportunity into the pipeline because there was no next step. So the question always is, how many real prospects do you have in your sales pipeline? How real are they? Are they engaged? Are they having meetings after your meeting with people in their own company to get closer to a decision? So in any way, it doesn't matter what you think is a great meeting or a good meeting. One of the ideas that I want to share with you is ask people, what would make this a good meeting for you? If we spend the next 45 minutes together, what would have to happen for you to say this was a good meeting? And you really want to know what a good meeting means to the customer and what good results mean to the because you're not a very good judge. And we talked about precision language. It's not a great meeting unless there's an advance. It's not even a good meeting unless there's a next step. This may cause a little bit of controversy for those of you who've never heard me speak before, but what do you mean sales call? And I hate the term sales call. I try to use it as little as possible. And the reason I came to that conclusion, and I wrote about it in The Accidental Salesperson, quit making sales calls and start counting scheduled sales conversations. And I remember doing some in-house consulting for a radio station years ago, and the sales manager said, we're not making our number. That's why we have a sales consultant. I said, I figured that. And I said, well, he said, I'm having to make 10 calls a day, but we're not making the number. Should I have them make more? And I said, well, let me take a look at the call reports. And I got a pile of call reports. They weren't on computer back then, and they're just pieces of paper. And he brought me a stack of call reports, and I started reading them. And the third or fourth one I read, it said, I went to see Ed at the whatever company. he was having lunch with another vendor at Happy Joe's Pizza. I actually got the pizza place in there. And I will call on him next week. So he wrote 3 sentences. And I said to the rep, you just wrote up a meeting that didn't happen. You used 3 sentences on your call report about a call you made that no one was there. Why did you write this up? He said, because I have to make 10 calls a day. So everything I do, I call a call. I said, so you go to see a guy who's not there, and that's a call. That's 1. What if you've got a busy signal when you're doing some prospecting? He said, that'd be 2. If you dropped a coffee mug off at an advertiser, that would be 3. So you really can't, if everything you do is a call, it's a meaningless thing. I made a sales call. Well, was it a needs analysis meeting? Was it a proposal? Was it a first meeting? There's more to it than that. So I want to get a little more precise. All right. So I copyrighted the term sales pipeline angioplasty 18 years ago, or trademarked it. And I don't think it's really caught on, but I think it's pretty evocative of what happens. And you know what an angioplasty is. But in sales, it's a skill of getting stalled deals moving and dead deals out of your sales pipelines. And the biggest idea is that sales pipelines are clogged with dead and dying deals. And we're hoping that they'll come through, but we really need to find out if they're real or not. Because there's lots of activity, and I know we're in a pandemic and a recession, but this is true before and after the recession. We get a lot of people going, but fewer closes coming out the end of the pipeline. So this is the research from Chief Sales Officer Insights and their survey of chief sales officers in medium to large companies. But it's true across the board. 90% of deals that salespeople are sure going to close, 75% sure, don't close when they're projected to close. 90%. 54 of the deals that are sure to close, 75% sure, don't close at all. And then that's 54%, and then 30 and 24 is 54%. So 30% that don't close go to a competitor, 24% go to no decision. They just decide not to do anything, maintain the status quo. So that's the research. So I'm going to talk now at the top of page 4 about asking the magic question and using the magic email to perform sales pipeline angioplasty. You're separating the prospects from the information seekers, the engaged from the disengaged. So, quick question. Do I look like any famous movie star that you've ever seen? You can text that in if you want to, but the answer is coming pretty quickly. It's pretty good comparison. A lot of people think I look like Bruce Willis. Thank you, Casey. And I just use that for a little comic relief, but quick question is what I want you to remember. Quick question is the best subject line I found to put on an email in a very long time. So I had a guy that I was trying to close a seminar deal with, and he'd gone dark on me. He disappeared. I hadn't had an email back from him. He hadn't returned a phone call for 3 weeks. And we were trying to get this session scheduled. And I wrote him an email and I said, quick question, Cliff, I have you on my waiting for list of people I'm expecting to hear back from. Am I still on your radar? So it's 2 sentences. Sarah, my partner and wife, or Zola, she adds the sentence, you're still on mine. But any way you do this, quick question and word for word, write that down. Waiting for a list. It's a concept from David Allen in his book, Getting Things Done. If people owe you a call, if people owe you a report, a proposal, or a check, put them on a list called your waiting for list. And so I got a call back from him from Seattle in 45 minutes. He called me, he said, you're good. He said, I'm out west, but I'll be back in Madison on Wednesday. We can have breakfast at the Parkway Grill. And we met for breakfast at 7 o'clock and got the deal done. But I've now taught this on 4 continents over the last 15 years. And every time I teach it, good things happen. Now, I had 5 people register for this webinar at the end of last week. And I sent out an email that said second notice. And on the day I sent out that email that said second notice, I got 50 more registrations. So I don't know, second notice might be something you could put on a email too, if it works for you. It's been working for me. So what does a customer want to know when you walk in the door? Why are you here? What's going to happen? What's in it for me? Purpose, process, payoff. They might want to know about your credentials and how long this is going to take. I don't go to a movie or a play anymore without reading a review and finding out how long it is. I just want to know how long it is. And I remember when my in-laws were alive and Sarah would say, we're going to go up and see mom and dad. I'd say, when are we coming home? Because if I'm going to be the perfect son-in-law, I need to know when I don't have to be that anymore, so I can devote the energy I need to it, but not all weekend long, please. So it's a bad sign when people take a phone call during your meeting. I know that's happened to everyone. I just got to take this. It's even worse when people make outgoing phone calls during your meeting, because they don't know when it's going to end. So if they know what's going to happen, why you're there, what's going to happen, what's in it for them, how long it's going to take, that you're credible, they're more likely to spend the time and do the meeting in a way that helps both of you. Avoiding the 10 things buyers dislike is very important. The top 3: lack of preparation, lack of interest or purpose, over-aggressiveness, and failure to listen. I had a business banker from the biggest bank in Wisconsin come into my office one time and say, what do you do here anyway? After I just spent $100,000 on a website. He didn't even Google me before he came in. Now you can go on LinkedIn, you can do anything to find out about people. Lack of interest or purpose and over-aggressiveness and failure to listen. If you have the handout, you see the last 7, starting with lack of product knowledge, lack of follow-through, etc. If you simply avoid those 10 mistakes, the things that buyers dislike, you'll be one of the top people in the marketplace, because so many people make so many of those mistakes that it's easy to be an outstanding salesperson compared to them. All right. Magic question, in the magic phrase, in preparing for this meeting, I checked your website, read an article from your trade organization, came in there on Saturday morning to see what kinds of people were shopping, talked to 2 of your salespeople on the floor to find out more about what they're up against. So whatever you did, tell people what you did to prepare for this meeting. I remember one time, the owner, the manager of Octopus Car Wash, the owner's son, he said, we're going to lay low for, we did a survey and nobody mentioned that they heard the ads on your radio station. So we're going to lay low and just see how we do without any advertising. And I said, Jeff, I call on you every week. And when I'm not, and every week I read Auto Laundry News. I work on ideas for your advertising for another hour every week. So when I'm not with you, I'm thinking about you. And now you're telling me you want to make me use all my creativity to get you back on the air, to resell you, instead of thinking about you and coming up with commercials that'll build your business. So I can use my creativity to sell you or to help sell your car washes. What would you prefer I do? He says, I didn't know you did all that work. And you got to tell people what you do behind the scenes when they're not looking. Tell them what you did to prepare for the meeting. Tell them what you do for them when you're not with them. Sell that too. All right. Socrates said, I can't teach anybody anything. Allegedly, he said this. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only get them to think. And of course, he was famous with the Socratic method, asking questions, getting people to drawing out people, making them think and think further. So I want you to think about what selling is like when you're at your best. And if you want to chat this to me, how do you feel when you're at your best? And you could do that. How do you behave? What would I see if I was observing you? Would I see more gesturing? Would I see you smiling? And then how do your clients react when you're at your best? How do your clients treat you? How do your clients behave when you're at your best? So if you want to text that in, we can spend a little time thinking about that. And well, then we'll move to the last page. How do you feel when you're selling at your best? My chat feature must be broken on. I'm having fun. I'm engaged. So Jason and Richard. Joanna says, I'm energized. I'm confident. I'm excited. I'm confident, says Brooke. Jeff, I'm energized. Confidence, confidence, confidence. Clients seem to be appreciative and have confidence in me. I'm confident in knowing it'll be a success. I'm excited. I'm happy when I'm at my best. Okay, I'm ready to help someone else when I'm at my best. I'm resourceful. I say the right things. I'm confident in control of the conversation, says Howard. All right, so, you know, knowledgeable when I'm at my best. I tend to be able to tap into what I already know and say the right thing. So that's how I behave. More eye contact. My clients seem to open up to me more. Okay, we'll stop here. Clients buy from me. Good one. Clients spend more time. All right, so when you're at your best, you're more persuasive, you're more confident, you're more knowledgeable. But when you think of when I think of persuasiveness, I think about the 3 vibes, and then we give off these vibes, and I hope I'm giving them off today as I sit here in my kitchen. It's not like having a live audience or a live audience, but I'm glad to be here. So whenever I start to speak to someone, I like that Brotherhood of Man song, United We Stand, Divided We Fall. Many of you probably have never heard it, but it starts out, there's nowhere else on earth that I would rather be. And I always think that there's nowhere else on earth that I would rather be than here, right now. And this is what I'm really meant to do. I'm not much of a golfer. I get tennis elbow pretty easily. So I like to do this. And so I'm glad to be here. I know what I'm talking about, and I love what I'm doing. And I would suggest that when you're at your best, you're giving off these vibes too. Knowledgeable, number 2, love what I'm doing, confident, and you're really not distracted. You're not wishing you were somewhere else. And that's really a huge thing when you're there for the client and not for yourself. And the client can sense that. So think about that, those 3 vibes. When you're at your best, you're probably doing this too. All right. We're on page 5 already. So we've got about 10 minutes to go. There I am, probably 1976 or so. I had hair, I had hope, I had a positive mental attitude. I wore a leisure suit to work, drove the orange Gremlin for a few years. And I was selling radio advertising, Madison, Wisconsin. Across that field in the background was a radio station. And I got on my message nail when I came in one day about 3 o'clock after lunch and making a couple of calls or having some scheduled sales conversations. I got a message and it said, Mr. Voss from Shapey Conway Dodge called and he wants you to cancel the whole annual contract. He's the new manager. Steve is no longer there and he will meet with you at 1:20 on Thursday and you can repitch the annual contract. So it's Tuesday, and I called the dealership and I asked for one of the salespeople, Jerry Voss, and she said, I said, what kind of a guy is Bob Voss? She said, he's from Milwaukee, he's tough. He turned around Dodge City, and now he's here to turn around Shapey Conway Dodge. This is even before Lee Iacocca was at Dodge. Was a mess. And so Bob Voss was there, and I'm figuring that I'm going to be the 12th or 13th sales rep because he's canceled everybody. And if I'm the 120, there has to be a 1. And maybe he went to lunch, but there was an 11:40, 11:20, and 11 o'clock sales meeting. And then there was a 10:40. So I'm the 12th, 13th sales rep. And I walk in, and I remember the sales rep walked out as the door opened, and his head was shaking. He was looking at the floor going, whoa. And I walk in and I say, Mr. Voss, Chris, he said, sit down and pitch me. You're my 120. And I hadn't even brought a media kit because I knew what was going to happen if I got into a 20-minute pitch. And I said to him, I don't know if you should be on our station or not, sir. And he just looked dumbfounded. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're a serious turnaround car general manager. You've been to Dodge. You're a great car guy. And you're successful, and we're having the biggest month in our station's history right now. And right now we're doing without each other. And I said, do I still have 20 minutes? He said, you got 18. I said, so I work with American TV. I work with John Lancaster. I said, I work with some big clients who are very successful, and they want ideas that'll help them build their business, not make my quota. And I want to, the way I work, this is the way I work. This is the way I work. I find out what you're trying to accomplish, and then I bring in some ideas and an intelligent presentation to help you achieve your objectives. Steve's gone. I know what he was trying to accomplish. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, and I can't make an intelligent presentation until I've done a needs analysis. And then I'll come back with that. And I gestured to his credenza where there were 12 media kits. I said, have you had any intelligent presentations? Have you had any intelligent presentations so far today, Mr. Voss? He said, Chris, this has been the most boring day of my life. Now think about that. He'd had 12 media pitches, all level 1, about the station, the annual, the formats, the newspaper, the billboards, and he was bored. And you can't bore people into buying from you. So I said, Mr. Voss, he said, call me Bob. I said, Bob, what are you trying to do here? And we spoke in a 20-minute meeting, went an hour and 20 minutes. And when I walked out the door, I shook hands with him and I said, see you next week, Bob. He said, thanks, son. And there were 6 reps waiting for their 20-minute meeting. And I said, good luck, everybody. And I walked out the door. All right, so I was pretty competitive back then. And really, but I also wanted to be the rep that the person relied on. And so having a this is the way I work meeting, this is the way I work presentation is important. So there's relationship tension and task tension. When Bob Voss said, sit down and pitch me, it was 100% relationship tension. He's putting pressure on me. And when he said, this has been the most boring day of my life, this is the kind of relationship he had with the people that he was dealing with. You know, it was just, they were bored. This is Skid Row bum, this is coma, and 0 tension is death. I think when we're selling at our best, we're probably reducing the relationship tension and increasing the task tension, which is the willingness to work with us, because we've sold them on the idea that we're the ones that have their backs. We're the ones that are advocates rather than adversaries. And if you have a way to bring down the relationship tension, this is the way I work. I have a process that I follow, and it helps people become more successful with their advertising. If you can sell them on that, you're golden, because this is the way I work is magic, and clients buy the way you sell before they buy what you sell. I like what Cindy said, when I'm at my best, I'm proud of myself. There's pride when you're at your best. So clients buy the way you sell before they buy what you sell. So what do you mean closing? Trouble with closing, look at that. 6/7 of the word closing is losing. A lot of people think if they don't close, they don't lose. I was fortunate to see Alan Simberg, the late great sales trainer, And he was speaking at the Radio Advertising Bureau Marketing Leadership Conference years ago. And he said, if you walk in with nothing and walk out with nothing as a salesperson, you didn't lose, you broke even. You walked in with nothing and you walked out with nothing. You broke even. And folks, if you believe that, if I don't make the sale, I didn't lose, I just broke even. And then Alan Simberg, so if you believe that, you would be a much stronger closer. And then Alan Simberg said, if you don't ask, you're a loser. If you ask and you don't get the sale, you broke even. But if you don't ask, you're a loser. So some ways to think about closing: open the business relationship. You don't have a business relationship until someone writes you a check. It's very hard on the chart to have anything more than a level 2 relationship with someone you're not really doing business with. You can have a level 3 moment, you can send them an article, but until you really start working with them, there's not real trust, or you're not really helping. Another way to think about closing is confirm the order. You're confirming the order. You've done all this work, now you're just confirming that they want to move forward, or you want to implement the strategy. Do you want to implement this strategy? Here it is. So we're not just closing, we're opening. We're implementing the strategy. We're confirming the order. So zero pressure closes. I don't think I have a slide for this, but it's in your notes. I would love to have you as a customer. If you don't want to say love, say like. I'd like to have you as a customer. Is there any reason why we can't get started? So if they say no, there's no reason, we can write this up. If they say, yeah, I'm concerned about this, and they give you a real objection. So I'd like to have you as a customer or an advertiser. Is there any reason why we can't get started? Or, well, okay, you seem like you like what I've said, makes sense. What would you like me to do next? And they'll either tell you, write it up, or they'll tell you what has to happen for them to buy. And then the third one, you know, if you're dealing with a marketing director and not the owner, or an agency, when you bless this, once you bless this, what happens? And then you find out what their buying process is going to be and see if you can get involved with the buying process. All right, so those are 3 low pressure closes. I'm really big right now on James Muir. James Muir has written a book called The Perfect Close. He reminds me of a young me in the way he thinks and the way he goes about it. But this is James. And I listened to his podcast, you know, a step-by-step guide to the perfect close. It's the Salesman Podcast, and it's on YouTube. You can Google The Perfect Close and you'll find this. It's also in the extra credit videos section on instant sales training. If you do the drop down and click on video training, you can see this 42-minute video. But essentially what he says is you've got to have 2 to 3 closes ready to go. Your main objective, you might want to get him to sign the contract, a backup, and even a third backup close. So it would go like this. Does it make sense? You know, does it make sense to get this started? If he says yes, then you've got the order. No, it doesn't. I don't want to. No, it doesn't. Okay, you know, at this point, a lot of our advertisers want to hear a couple of commercials, come up to the studio, record themselves. We create a couple of commercials so you know what exactly it's going to sound like and what we'll be saying. Does that make sense? And now maybe you get them to come up to the studio and record a commercial. So you advance them, but you didn't get the order. No, I don't want to do that. Well, what does make sense right now to you? So it's not asking them to do things, but asking if this makes sense, this makes sense. So you're really not getting no's to an ask other than does this make sense? Not do you want to do it or not? So I would check out this podcast or his book. It's a really interesting way to think about closing, and it's zero pressure. All right. So I hope you've benefited from what you've gotten so far. That's the end of the real content. But I'd like to do a quick survey. After I tell this story, I was in Bermuda. We were in Bermuda about 20 times back in the day. But I was there with my brother and sister-in-law, Bob and Kathy, on one vacation. And we all went on a motor scooter ride, had breakfast, had lunch in Hamilton, came back and played golf at the condo. And at 6 or 7 o'clock, we're having a drink, watching the sunset. And the question is, what was the highlight of your day? And Kathy said, oh, the highlight was first thing in the morning when we came around on the North Shore Road and saw the pink sand beach. You can't see how pink it is in the picture or in the guidebooks, but it just took my breath away. Hey, Bob, what was the highlight of your day? When we were at the airport, that cargo plane, and then there was a military plane being lowered down from, he said, and the military plane had its wings folded up. He said, I don't even know if we're allowed to see those planes. Those are top secret planes. That's amazing. I said, Sarah, what about your highlight? And Sarah said, oh, that lunch in that little restaurant in Hamilton, above the department store, fantastic. We're on the harbor at a beautiful breeze. So now there's 3 people with 3 different highlights. And they said, well, what was your highlight? I said, remember when I saved par from the sand on 16? And that was a highlight of my day. That was a tough hole. So we'd all had 4 different highlights, and we'd all done the same things, same motor scooter, same restaurant, same golf course, but everybody had a different highlight. So do you have 1 or 2 specific things you can do as a result of this, attending this session, or 1 or 2 highlights from being here? And if you want to chat that through, then it'll help other people review what we've done, and we'll be finished in 3 minutes, and I'll have done it in an hour. So what was a highlight of this session for you, or what can you do as a result of attending this session? And you're allowed to look at your notes. Cindy says, learning the 10 things that buyers dislike, and then you want to avoid those things. A quick question email has really helped me with those that don't respond. Thanks, Mark. Mark just went through Ignite Radio Sales. Am I still on your radar? Use a zero pressure closing, says Drew. A reminder to continue refreshing myself on a regular basis. Quick question in the magic email. The reason for my unexpected sales call, says Stacy. I'm going to use that, and use because every time you call someone and ask them for something. Because, very magic word. Use the 3 vibes. Be present, engaged, and happy. Glad to be here. Love what I'm doing. Know what I'm talking about. I have you on my waiting list, says Kelly. My highlight is reminding us, hold on 1 second. Reminding us of what to say on the unexpected sales call. It's now a staple of our calling process. What's the next step? It was a great refresher from your Ignite Radio course. Thanks, Casey. Quick question email, the chart. Scheduled sales conversation, says Stephanie. Brooke, really like the 10 things buyers dislike and the car dealer story. How do you stand out from the typical sales pitch, was her Brooke's idea. Unexpected sales call from Tori. Review and re-gauge, regrade, I guess, if necessary, my current book of business. So I want to use the chart and grade my book of business. Reviewing the skill of questions of closing, remembering to go back to the fundamentals, having a reason to call, enter, and advance the relationships. That's from Jason. Katie, becoming known for what you know. So you got to share your knowledge. Hey, I just got back from this webinar. Here's what I learned. The last conversation is a relationship. That's what Andy likes. They're not thinking about you after you leave. Definitely improving my relationships with clients and improving theirs with me, says Kevin. Also letting us know we have to stand out and be different from the competition, says Tori. In preparing for this meeting, using the magic phrase, setting expectations with prospects of this is the way I work so they know what to expect. Good idea, Mark. I had 2 new business closes from this philosophy last month. So Mark's already using the this is the way I work idea. Joanna says, earning the right to make a recommendation. That's the definition of sales from Phil M. Jones. I like that too. Earning the right to make the recommendation. You can use that when you do this is the way I talk, you know, to me, selling is earning the right to make a recommendation to you. So in order to do that, I need to ask you some questions and find out what you're trying to accomplish so I can make an intelligent presentation. Better prepared. Be better prepared. People over 50 in their net worth, Stacy remembers that. Based on what you've told me, here's what I recommend. Yeah. Following up more, says Teresa. Following through more too. All right, well, that's a great list. I'm not going to do Q&A. We're right at the 1 hour mark, but I do want to let you know that I'm available to answer questions. My phone number is 773-501-7008, 773-501-7008. You've got my email, chris.lytle@instantSalesTraining.com. And I want to thank all of you for being on the call. Remember, education without action is entertainment. To know and not to do is not to know. And a training program, even a short webinar like this, that doesn't change your behavior in some way is as useless as a parachute that opens on the first bounce. So go out, take action, go help your customers. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.